So welcome back. This is talking a little bit more about PY04. We're talking about lists and conditionals, inequality, equality, and logic gates. So let's get into it and check it out. Today's project, I created a file called conditionals.py. I dated it with today's date, and I'm just listing that it's about conditionals. The first thing that I did was I created a list here called students, and in that list I simply have a string which is each student's name here in the course. So that's all we have here. It goes on for a little while. If I scroll over here to the side, you'll see everybody's name. Pretty nice list. Then right here I have a comment to print the list, and I'll show you what that does right now. When you're working with lists and you use just the print function like this, and you use the name of the list as your parameter, this is what will pop out. You get something like this, where it basically just spits out at you exactly what you put in as your list right here. So it even includes the little squared brackets there. Alright, if you wanted to print out each name individually, you'd want to do something like this, where you set up a for loop for each student in that list of students. I want to print the name of the individual student. Now in this case, I'm using student as my variable name. I could change this. I could call it person, and I would just change this to, instead of student, I could call it person. This is just to show you that this name right here is kind of an arbitrary made-up variable. When you're listing something out for something in students, anything that you put here is going to refer to the item, each individual item in students. So if I run this, it will now print out the original list, which is up here in those brackets, but after that it's printing out each person individually, just right here on a separate line. So it's going to print out the name of a person and then go back up to the top of the for loop and continue over and over again until it is through with the entire list. So that's what you see here. Alright, let's see how we can use conditional statements with lists. So right here, I'm gonna comment all of this out except for the actual creation of the students list. I'm gonna keep using that. I'm just gonna comment out this stuff right here. And actually, I'm gonna push it down this way. Alright, so what I could do is for student in students, I could make it to where I could call to see if a particular thing is in the list. So if that student is Ramon Flores, I will print out lucky us. Ramon is here. Alright. And then I'll put an else statement. Else, I'm just going to print each student. So in this case, it's very similar to what I had down here for person and students. But in this case, I'm looking for one specific student. And if that name shows up, then it's going to print out something different. It's going to print out lucky us, Ramon is here. Otherwise, if it doesn't see this equality, this student is equal to this particular string, then it's going to go to its else statement and just do the regular printout of a student. So I'm going to press F5, we'll check it out. There we go. So as you can see, it did the same thing as the previous list that we did, except it saw that Ramon is here, and so right there it decided to print that out. So it goes down the list just like this, the regular print the student name list, except now there's a conditional statement to where it's checking to see if the student is equal to this particular string. So we can write exceptions in, basically. We can do this a few different ways, but this is the most basic way. Alright, let's talk about how we can check for equality. I'm going to take this out, move it down. There we go. So we've done this before. If we were to make a statement like number equals 42, I'll do 43. I can make a statement to check to see if this is true or false, or a conditional statement. So if I do number double equal sign 43, if I do a print command around this, it will tell you if this statement is true or false. Let me run this. So in this case, I put number equals 43, and then I'm printing, does the number actually equal 43? So right here, if you remember in programming, when you type in the number or the name of a variable and then the equal sign and something on the other side, this is actually not an equal sign. This is what is known as a assignment operator. So what it does is it assigns whatever's over here on the right side to the value of the name here. So right here I'm printing out if the number is actually equal to 43. And how does it know if it's equal or not? Well, it checks to see if this value is equal to the value that is assigned inside that variable. So right here it says true. It can tell that yes, the number right now is 43. If I change this, this is the equality operator. We could also use the inequality operator, which looks like this. You can also think of this as the not gate, or the not Boolean operator. So right here, if it's equal sign, that's checking to see, is this equal to this? If you see a exclamation point and an equal sign, that means it's not that. So it's checking to see if the number is anything but 43. So when I press F5 and I run this, we'll see that I assigned 43 as the value of the variable number. Then I printed, okay, I want to check to see if number is equal to 43. Yes, it's true. I want to check to see if number is not equal to 43, and that is false. So as you can see, the number does equal 43. If I change this and I made it not equal to 42 instead, then when we run this, we'll see that both of the statements are true. The number is equal to 43, and the number is also not equal to 42. So it's checking both of these things. And this allows us to do a lot with making choices in our code. We can check to see if something is equal. We can check to see if something is not equal. We can also use mathematical operators. We've done this before. So if I do print number is greater than 10, we'll see if that works. If I print that out and I run it, I can see that number is in fact greater than 10, so it's going to give me a true as the response right there. You can also do greater than or equal to, so if I do print number greater than or equal to, say 50. If I run this, then we'll see that what it gives me is, for that particular entry is false because the number is 43. And right here, I'm checking to see if the number is greater than or equal to 50, which it is not, so it's going to return false as its response. So you can check this with numbers. You can check it with strings as well. Let's talk about how we can use strings in this case. Let me comment all this out and move it down a little bit. Alright, so let's talk about strings. So I created a variable called animal, and I assigned it the value of dog, capital D-O-G, capital D lowercase o-g, that is. If I want to check for equality, I can do that, or I'm sorry, animal print animal equals dog. Now if I type this out, it will check to see is animal equal to this string right here, dog. And when I print that out and run it, I will see that it equals false. Does anybody have any idea why this would be? Correct. It is case sensitive. So we learned earlier in the year what ASCII characters are. A string is simply a string of ASCII characters. It's actually a list of ASCII characters if you want to think about it that way. And so it is case sensitive. The ASCII code for a capital D is different from a lowercase d. There is a couple of bytes that are switched, or a couple of bits that are switched. So in this case we can see that the comparison is false because lowercase does make a difference with strings. Now if we wanted to, we talked about this before, if we wanted to check to see if just dog was the animal without caring about the spacing of it, we could just put a animal.lower like this, and now we are using the lower function or the lower method on the animal variable here to see if it is equal to dog. And if we do that, we will see that it actually does run. It finds what it wants. So if you want to eliminate casing to your string, to your variable, just use the .lower command or the .upper command to change the format of the string. Right here I put true, or now it sees true because it is just checking to see if the lowercase version of this variable animal equals dog, which it does. Alright. Alright, so let's talk about using multiple conditions now. We just recently started talking about George Boole and how he did what he did in the past to contribute to the field of computing. What we're going to do now is use some of his Boolean operators, specifically the AND, NOT, and OR gates. We just used NOT by using the exclamation point and equal sign. That is basically a NOT gate. It checks to see if something is not something else. So this can be very useful when we write code. I'm going to start off by just using an example out of the book here. We'll say age 0 equals 22, and age 1 equals 18. What we can do is we can check to see if two things are true or not. So in this case, I'm going to put age 0 is greater than or equal to 21. And you'll notice that when I type out and, it turns blue. This is because it's actually something that's important to the engine here, to the Python syntax. It knows that this is a Boolean operator. I'm going to check to see if and age 1 is greater or equal to 21. So when I run this, basically, I'm creating two ages. There's the age of person 0, which is 22. There's the age of person 1, which is 18. And I'm checking to see if they are both over 21. This would be like if you were coding some kind of robot that's a bouncer at a club or something. You'd want to have it check to see if whoever's coming in is greater than or equal to 21 years old. So I'm going to run this, and it's checking to see if everybody in your party is that. Let's see. Oh, I got to print this out, so I'm going to print everything that's in here. That way we can see what the outcome is. So I run this, and I see that it says false. Because this person is 22, which is fine, that's over 21. But it's checking to see if age 1 is 21 right here as well, and it fails that test. And because it's checking to see if this and this is true, it's going to come out with false. We talked a little bit about truth tables and how Boolean logic works, but basically the and requires both of the statements on both sides of the and operator to be true in order for it to come out true. If either one of these is false, then it's going to bring back a false return. B208, this McDowell. Sure. No problem. Jordan? Jordan? They're calling you up at the front office. Alright, so this is how the AND operator works. Basically, it checks to see if this statement and this statement are true, then it will come out as a true. However, if either one of them is false, it's going to give you a false response. The other type of thing that we can do, instead of putting and here, we can put or. And if we put an or in instead, now when it runs, it says true, because it's just checking to see if one or the other is true, then it will end up giving you a true statement. So in this case, this would be a different kind of, I'm not sure, go ahead and take it. So in this case, it's checking to see if this statement is true or this statement is true. In this case, the age of person 0 is over 21, it's 22. So it's going to give me back a true response. Very few bars operate this way, where they would say, oh, okay, one person is old in your group, alright, then all of you can come in. It's pretty rare. Perhaps you can find it in some areas, but this is basically how we're going to be able to use and, or, and not. We can use and, or. If you type in not, that is actually another command that we're going to do. It doesn't really make sense in this particular context, so I'm just going to keep it with and or. So let me just take this statement, copy and paste it, and I'm going to use an or statement here, just so you can see the difference between the two. Just remember that and requires both entries to be true in order for it to end up as a true. And the or will take either one, peanut butter or jelly. As long as it gets one, it's happy. The and, you need both peanut butter and jelly. If you give it just peanut butter or just jelly, it will return a false on you. Alright, in this case I created a list up here of students, student names. I want to talk about a function that we haven't used too much yet, but can be very fun to use, and that is the len command. So we can print out a particular person in our list here simply by listing out which entry we want out of this list. So right here I'm printing out the 0th entry of the list students, which should be the first person in the list. Remember that we have an off by one kind of thing where 0 is the first entry of a list. This will prove that. So if I run this, after closing this, if I run this, it should print out just that first person's name. So there it is. Alright, so we have the first entry of our list printed out right here. Now if I want, I can check to see if a particular person is in a list. So let me show you how you can do that. So I'm going to make a secondary list here. Or actually I'm going to use the length command. So right here, where I have students 0, what I can do is I can use the len function around that variable. And what that will do is it will tell me the amount of characters that are in this name. So right here, I have this string. How many characters does it have? I don't know. I can print out the length of the characters in that variable, and we'll see what it comes up as. So 16. It's saying that there's 16 characters. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Yep. It is counting the space. A space counts as a character. So it is saying that there's 16 characters in that one name. Now this can be used for all kinds of things. I mean, you think about a game where it first has you input what the name of your character is. You could have a bunch of in-game choices that are made simply based off of the length of that name that people put in at the very beginning of the game. So there's a lot of things that you can do with something like a length function like this. And we can do this for any one of the character names. So I can simply copy and paste this print command. I'm going to make it to where it prints out the name of student 1. And I'm going to have it print out the length of how many characters are in that student's name. So I'm just going to put this student has characters in their name. So right here I have that they're printing this. It will print out what their name is first, and then it will say this student has and however many characters with this len command right here in their name. So I'm going to press F5. Let's check it out. Alright, here we go. It says it's Ramon, and they have 12 characters in their name. If we counted it up, including the space, then it would be correct. If I wanted to change this to say how many letters they have in their name, I could simply omit 1 because there's a space in there. So I could just make this -1. And then I could say, instead of characters, I could say letters. Sure. Alright, so now it will say exactly how many letters are in the name, because it's taking the length of their name and subtracting 1 because there's a space in there. Alright, I could make a list of banned users. We'll say banned users. I'll just put banned students equals, let's see, I don't want to pick anybody in particular here. I'll just pick them based off of what their position is in here. So we'll say students. I'll create a list here, and I'm going to pull from the students list So I made a new list called band students, and in that student list I've just kind of arbitrarily picked some random numbers. Some of you are going to be, maybe I shouldn't make it band students, I'll just make you lucky students. There we go. I don't want to just ban you here. So let's see who our lucky students are. If I print this out, here we go. So we have our code from Ramon up there, that they have 11 letters in their name. And then after that, it's taking these student names here from these particular positions of the student list, and it is writing out what their names are. So there they are. Those are our lucky students for today. If I wanted to, I could pick a random student from this list pretty easily. I could do that by using our random command. We learned about random methods earlier. So I'm going to just pick a random student right here. This is how to get the length of characters from a variable. So if I wanted to pick a random student, what I could do is I could import my random functions. We need to do that first because those aren't just built into the engine. We need to make sure that we import a random one. And from there, right here where we have students, we could put random.randint, and I'm just going to make it pick from 1 to, I'll say 18. So there we go. When it comes to this kind of stuff, you do kind of have to keep track of parentheses and what have you. So right here we're looking at lucky students equal, I'll just make lucky student. And what it's going to do is it's going to pick from the list of students. It's going to look in that list and it's going to pick a random number between 1 and 18 and spit it out as a lucky student. So there we go. If I run this, we'll see our lucky student is Samuel Rodriguez. Lucky you, Sam. Alright. So now we have a way to randomly pick from a list. We have a way to check whether or not something is equal or not. We have a way to use and or operators, which is basically to allow us to combine two different expressions into one. In this case, I'm checking to see if this is true and this is true. And in this case, I'm checking to see if this is true or this is true. So we've got a few things that we can do now. Let's see if we can put these to use in our games that we are currently writing. So I'm going to go back into our, let's see, we had a slap fight, I think. Let's not do the slap fight just yet. We were talking about rock, paper, scissors earlier, so let's go back to that reference. I'll start up a new stream for that. I hope you enjoy. Happy coding.